Hey everybody, this is Mr. Stevenson. Welcome back. Last class we talked about axioms and proofs and theorems, and you even made a little conjecture based on the circles. Today we're going to talk about one of the most famous mathematical theorems that are out there, which is Pythagoras' theorem, or the Pythagorean theorem. So Pythagoras is a Greek, and he was born in 569 BC, and he came up with this relationship for right triangles that we will talk about at the end of the lesson, right? Before we get into that, I just wanted to try to give you an introduction to who Pythagoras was and some interesting things about him. So being a mathematician way back then gave you some power, and so he actually was a leader of a cult, and this cult worshipped numbers, right? So you can think of it as like a math religion, or religion surrounded on math. So all these other mathematicians signed up to be his pupils because he was considered to be the smartest guy around. They believed in numbers, and they believed that numbers, were the elements behind the entire universe. He taught that the world was controlled by mathematical harmonies, and that numbers were sacred, almost like gods. And so there were special numbers, like the number 7 was the number of wisdom, number 8 was the number of justice, and number 10 was the most sacred number. It was prayed to, right? They prayed to the number of 10, mostly because of this figure here, which is this triangle with 10 points on it. They believed it to be the number of highest order, a divine number, maybe because we had that many fingers as well. If you wanted to join the Pythagorean cult, you had to swear an oath to the Holy Triangle, right? So instead of swearing an oath to the Bible or Quran or whatever it is, you might swear an oath to this Holy Triangle. It's kind of interesting, that he believed that. Another interesting thing is he himself was treated like a demigod, right? Like, so his followers saw him as a god because he knew so much math. He was like the god of math in their eyes. And there were all sorts of legends and myths spread about him, such that he would be reincarnated after his death, and all the things that follow with those kind of things. He was a vegetarian, and a very lazy one at that. He told his followers to never kill a living thing, and yet he had all sorts of exceptions for his rule. So he ate fish and chicken, which obviously is killing a living thing. There's also a joke about him how he wouldn't eat meat because unless somebody else had killed it for him. If you wanted to join this cult of Pythagoras, you had to spend 5 years in silence. So imagine that, right? You want to join a religion, you can't talk for 5 years. They were a very secretive cult, so it's thought that the reason they did this is because they didn't want their secrets coming out from new initiates. They were, like I said, they were very, very secretive. And one of the funniest things about him is that he may have drowned a man for discovering irrational numbers. You remember, irrational numbers are numbers that cannot be written as fractions. This cult believes so heavily in the purity and beauty of numbers, especially like whole numbers such as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that one of his most famous followers, Hippasus, was able to prove that the square root of 2 was irrational. And it is said, the myth is, that they went and they drowned him for it, right? Again, kind of silly stuff considering it's all about numbers and math. So that's a little brief introduction to Pythagoras and some of his strangeness that we can frame now for our lesson.